10:05, welcome back to the Chad Hasty Show on News Talk 95.1 FM and 790 AM KFYO. Texas Independence Day, and also the final day of early voting. Phone lines will be open a little bit later on at 770-5790, 1-800-687-0790. Coming up at 10:35, U.S. Senator John Cornyn will join the program. Yesterday on the show, we had Karen Gibson on the program, candidate for Lubbock County Judge in the Republican primary. And she threw out some, I would say, very serious allegations against our next guest and candidate in the Republican primary for Lubbock County Judge, Gary Boren. Mr. Boren, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Chad. I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Absolutely. I want to read, and folks, if you missed yesterday's interview, we do have it up at KFYO.com, and I want to read two quotes, Gary, and then I want you to respond to them, okay?
Okay.
Yesterday when Ms. Gibson was on the program, she said, quote, "I think there's something that needs to be asked, and that is what kind of deal did Gary Boren cut with the U.S. Attorney to resign?" Now, this is back in 2007. For those who don't know, you were on the city council, and in 2007 you resigned. What kind of deal did Gary Boren cut with the U.S. Attorney to resign instead of being prosecuted for his dealings with Ted Parker? She went on to say that she had information that you cut and ran and you were afraid of criminal prosecution. I will say she never presented that information or any evidence of that. What is your response?
Well, first of all, Chad, I appreciate the audience, and I'm sorry that Lubbock politics has gone to a typical swamp level like it has in Washington, D.C. But I know yesterday on your show I was stunned when I heard the personal slanderous attacks by Karen Gibson. And, I pretty much marked it up to her. It was outrageous, exaggerated imagination of a failing attempt of a typical City Hall politician who is desperate, and this is the normal trait of that sort of thing. And, Karen Gibson, she's entitled to her opinion, but not her own set of made-up facts, which is what you heard. And first of all, I never voted for Ted Parker health plan because we have to rephrase this. This was over a decade ago, okay?
Right.
And when I retired from the council in 2007, she didn't even come on till 3 years later. So I don't know where she's getting all her made-up facts. But I never voted for the Ted Parker health plan because I didn't think it was the best plan for the city and the employees. Basically, as I stated, and of course history proved me right on that. And as I stated earlier, I retired from the council in 2007 to help people get things in perspective, to concentrate on saving our family business during the great. It's called the Great 2007-2009 recession, and that was the greatest recession we've had since the Depression. Our family business was placing employees with employers, and during that downturn, nobody was hiring. So I had a choice to make. Do I sit here and spend time and effort at City Hall after the 2 terms, or do I dedicate my life back to my business 7 days a week, which I chose to say that to keep it going because we employ a lot of people, so her allegations are certainly fabricated. And, Chad, I gave over a decade of service to the Lubbock School Board and as president, and also to the Lubbock City Council and to the taxpayers. And like I said, her allegations are are simply not true. And if she thought they were in her own mind, I think you'd be hearing headlines and everything else, for the last years on this kind of stuff, But none of it's true, and it's just a sham that something like this has to come up. I also want to say, Chad, that Miss Gibson claimed that I was involved in the firing of an employee,
right?
Which would have been a direct violation of the city charter. So during my time on the city council, did I visit time to time with city department heads about different issues? Of course, absolutely. And you know why? Because when you're a resident of my district, had an issue with their alley or their dumpster or their trash or any issue of any kind, I would often inquire at that department what could be done to resolve it. When I'd have citizen complaints about different things, I would inquire. The city charter, to help Mrs. Gibson out, if she would read it, says on page 35, Article 10, Section 6, any city council person has a right to inquire about any issue to any city employee they so desire. That's what I was elected for. And that's what she was elected to do. And not once did I coerce a city employee or threaten to fire an employee. No city council member has that that authority to do something like that. So the city council only has hire or fire authority over 3 employees: your city manager, city attorney, and the city secretary, and that's spelled out in the city charter. So, I wanted to say that. On my time on the city council, Chad, I worked to pass truth in taxation, where we would tell the citizens the truth about what's going on with their property and their appraisals. And we passed truth in taxation to the point that Governor Perry recognized that and placed me on the board task force to study appraisal reform for the state of Texas. While I was also on the city council, 2004, to sort of help your audience know, I passed the 65 and older freezing your property taxes, and led a charge to get the county to do so, which they followed later on in the summer of 2004. And if you just think back now, that was 14 years ago. What your property tax would be if that hadn't been frozen. And so, and then I served on like another appointed board by a different governor to chair the technical vocational education, try to find ways to keep people to the school system to get them employable and working in the system. So, while we're on some of these subjects of what I did on the city council on my 2 terms, Miss Gibson has claimed that she, in a mail out, saved the city $4 million on insurance benefits. Well, you want to know how she did that, Chad? By taking away the promised benefits of hundreds of retired city employees who worked for decades with the understanding that these promised benefits would be available in their retirement years. Ask a city employee retiree about it, or clinics or doctors. They'll tell you what's going on there. And during my campaign, Chad, I tried to, talk about serious issues that got to be solved. The gritty pay raises for the commissioners, the runaway tax appraisals on property owners of the county and the city of Lubbock and various cities in the county. The way these are forcing people to make decisions on how they spend their money now to the point of health care or what quality of life they have. The poor condition of our roads, the county roads, the dangerous situation of Woodrow Row, and what Sheriff Kelly Rowe needs in his continual uphill battle against the alarming crime rate we're dealing with in Lubbock with property crime and the drug trade. And you know what she's talking about? She's trying to talk about me. And like I said, it's an exaggerated imagination of a failing city hall politician, which is typical that it's desperate. On her record, Chad, she took great detail to scramble stuff, thoughts and pieces and this and that about me. On her record, it's a fact, is that she's voted to raise the tax rate at City Hall during her 10 years over 5 cents. The City Hall budget during her 2 terms has grown from over $500 million to over $800 million. That's a 60% growth. And then if you've heard about stormwater fees and the issue there, it has risen to unprecedented levels, impacting churches, nonprofits, major businesses. That it's still a mess. And then lastly, the thing we all remember closest is that her votes, and she said in the AJ, I have no regrets, that she voted to put, to fund $60 million for Citizens Tower, which is an ivory tower that even Dan Jackson at KCBD gave a commentary about and didn't even allow us to vote on it. And that was for the City Hall bureaucrats. And then she did another $60 million she voted on, and a split vote. Both of these were split votes. The mayor didn't vote for these on both times. A $60 million Lubbock PD stations without giving us, the taxpayers, the right to approve. And she did both of these. And you know what the tax implication of $120 million with the additional debt is going to be? We don't know yet. We know we've heard a minimum of 3 cents more on the tax rate. And I'm not even talking about the appraisal process that hits it like a multiplier. And so that's been her record at City Hall. And because of her failingness to take care of her business, she's sitting here trying to cast divisive type slanderous remarks that is unprecedented.
Gary, Gary, I'm going to put you on hold. I want you to hold on for one more, and then I want to ask you a couple specific questions about what she said yesterday, okay?
Okay, thank you.
All right, Chad Hasty Show, KFYO. We'll be right back with Gary Boren. Gary Boren on with us right now. And Gary, yesterday when your opponent was on and accusing you of these things, she said, of course, and we all know the FBI was, searching City Hall. The FBI was in Lubbock investigating, investigating this deal with Ted Parker.
Let me address that, Chad.
What role did you play in that?
Okay, let me address that. That came after I left the city, after I retired from the city council, and they did a review from 2 years before I ever was elected to I don't know what cutoff date they reviewed all that. I wasn't an issue because number one, I never voted for the Ted Parker insurance plan or health care plan, and so there was nothing there for that. And while I was in office there, I never took any contribution from him the 2 terms that I was there. So in the end result of their review of the city insurance plan was zero. Nothing happened. I don't think, and let me say, it's an outrageous lie to think that some deals were cut or something like that. That is the craziest thing I've ever.
So that's an absolute lie. That's an absolute lie.
Absolute. Yeah, no, there's no deals cut for nothing. Do you think the FBI, if you're watching Washington D.C., is going to worry about little city council people in Lubbock, Texas? My gosh, that's the end result was after reviews, nothing happened and everything was dropped. And the only insurance program I voted for, excuse me, when I was there. Was when I left, and I think I made the motion was Blue Cross Blue Shield, which is what they're using today. So that's outrageous in itself.
All right, so
these allegations, and then on
Terry Ellerbrook, Terry Ellerbrook,
that,
did you try to have Terry Ellerbrook fired?
No, sir. What that was exactly was the city was sued. None of us as city council people, and that was with Mark McDougal as mayor, Tom Martin, mayor pro tem, Jim Gilbert, myself, T.J. Patterson, I can't remember, maybe Frank Morrison, I can't remember who else. The city would always be sued over either an employee issue or a police issue or wrecks or things like that. These are civil type of things. And like I said, we have the right as elected officials to inquire. And then when Lubbock was put in a dangerous scenario because we didn't have water supplies like we had been told, Lake Meredith had dried up in the early 2000s. We were in a drought, and we were looking to see how we were addressing this. We were all asking who's been held accountable for not letting Lubbock have its reservoirs and supplies in a safe zone. So that's what all those things originated at, and those are all outrageous, and these are things that took place. Like I said, she wasn't even on the council till 3 years later, And Mayor Martin was the one working with Paul Bean and Gilbreth and those folks that settled any settlement with any insurance, that there was no loss made up. So, as a matter of fact, Mayor Tom Martin even said that the city owed apologies to people who were slandered or whatever, and some of these things because of what people insinuate. But that's a decade ago. That's why people don't sort of register with this stuff. It's a decade ago. There was no results of of anything bad or anything like that. So that's why I said these are nothing but vain imaginations of a city hall politician, which is typical in the city politics. It's desperate, trying to see what mud she can throw and see what will stick, and hopefully get some kind of traction. And I can tell you, none of it's truthful.
So everything she said yesterday, 100% lie.
I would say is lying, and it's not truthful.
All right, Gary.
And she ought to focus on her own record that she's done down there, and instead of trying to stick your finger in somebody else's eye when she's got stuff to answer for.
Gary, I appreciate your time. I know you're on the road right now. I appreciate you calling in and responding to yesterday's accusations, and I'm sure we'll visit again. Okay.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. That's Gary Boren, candidate for Lubbock County Judge, here on the Chad Hasty Show.